Now to the Democratic Republic of Congo, where authorities are trying to track down the assailants behind an attack at a sanctuary for endangered gorillas that left 6 rangers dead. More than 200 security personnel in the DRC's Virunga National Park have been killed so far, as dozens of militia groups roaming the mineral-rich border areas in one of the continent's oldest tropical rainforests continue to attack park rangers and each other with impunity. So we want to bring in foreign correspondent Debora Patta. She's following this story from Johannesburg. It may be something that's really not getting on our radar here in the U.S. because we have so much stuff happening domestically. But when I first saw this story, I initially thought, oh, poachers. We've seen this story before. But Debora, we're not talking about poachers here who are on the attack. These are most likely militiamen battling for control over natural resources. Why are they targeting park rangers?
Exactly, Anne-Marie. These are not poachers. These are militia groups, part of dozens of militias, actually, that operate in the area attacking park rangers. In fact, these militia groups often are remnants from decades of civil war in the region, and they hide out in the Virunga National Reserve and use it to survive. But when we talk about survival, I'm not talking about just daily subsistence survival and living off the land. This is a business for them. They attack park rangers because park rangers are very successfully conserving the land, and they've been very successful in conserving the flagship species of Virunga National Park, of course, the majestic mountain gorillas, and done a very good job. In fact, such a good job that last year the mountain gorillas were taken off the critically endangered list for the first time in goodness knows how many years. That's how successful they've been. But it puts a spoke and a spanner in the wheels of the business, the illegal business that these militia groups run. Basically, they use the forest for illegal fishing, illegal charcoal production, and other illegal agricultural activities. I spoke to the director of the park, Emmanuel Debora, just a short while ago, in fact, and sadly, he'd just come back from the funeral of the 6 park rangers, and he told me that the park loses about $170 million a year in illegal activities. That's how lucrative this business is. So those militia groups want to hold on to this, and they will fight for it at any cost. It's been blamed on the Mai, but I should point out that the Mai is not one homogenous group. Mai is really an umbrella term. It's a catch-all term that's used to refer to all these little militia groups who, through this lucrative activity, are very, very well funded and very heavily armed and able to attack with impunity fairly often.
You say attack with impunity. We mentioned that so far 200 park rangers have been killed. I mean, is there anyone who has been brought to justice thus far?
In fact, Anne-Marie, these attacks are seldom brought to justice. We've seen so many of them. This particular one, in which 6 park rangers were killed, is just literally over a year since the last attack in Virunga Park, in which 17 people were killed, and 12 of those were also rangers. Tourists have also been kidnapped for ransom or killed in this particular conflict. And instead of being brought to justice, what we actually see is a terrible ripple effect on the National Virunga Reserve. They've been trying to turn it around and make it into an economic asset, but they've been hit so hard. First, it was the Ebola outbreak that you'll recall that we've covered frequently in the DRC. Then, of course, the global impact of the COVID pandemic has decimated tourism in the area. And what usually happens after these park attacks is that the parks get shut down. People don't want to go there because it is so dangerous. So, in fact, the effect is on the park as a whole. They lose money, and that obviously impacts their attempts to conserve and make sure that the park is safe. So it just is this terrible, vicious cycle that happens every time there is one of these attacks, Anne-Marie.
Yeah, ripple effect. You have been to the Virunga National Park. I've spoken to people who have had an opportunity to sort of get up close with these majestic creatures. And, you know, for many people, it's sort of life-changing. What was your trip like? What did you see?
We've actually been fortunate enough to go more than once. And let me tell you, it probably rates as one of the most incredible experiences of my life. To get up and close, to see a mountain gorilla in person is truly breathtaking. They are phenomenal creatures, these majestic, gentle giants. You have to wear masks the whole time because they are very similar to us, actually, in terms of their genetic structure. And we wear masks, just like we do right now during the COVID pandemic, to protect them against getting our diseases. And it really is a huge source of tourism and revenue for the area. The Virunga Park, as you pointed out earlier, is one of the oldest parks in Africa, and it's home to incredible landscapes. There's volcanoes, there's massive biodiversity, and of course these beautiful, beautiful creatures that one has this rare privilege of seeing, and actually getting pushed higher and higher up the mountain because of deforestation and the violence and all of these attacks. The rangers, when you're there, do a phenomenal job. I should point out that it's still fairly dangerous when you go there. When we actually drove to the park from Goma to Virunga, you have to be protected by armed military escort because of the attacks that happen in the region. And even when you're walking through the park, the rangers that come with you are heavily armed. That's not to protect you against wild animals, that's to protect you against people, against rebels who may actually attack you. But despite that, it is truly a jaw-dropping experience. And these park rangers who do such an incredible job, you can imagine that their morale has been brutally affected by these attacks. They work so hard to conserve the area, have had such success, and in doing that, they make themselves targets for these militia groups. When I spoke to Emmanuel Debora, who himself actually has been a victim of a militia attack, he was injured in one in 2014, he told me that because of the devastating impact of first the Ebola pandemic, then the COVID pandemic, and these attacks, they actually don't know how much longer they can hold on. He says at best a few months, given the way they're going. And that is devastating news. It's devastating news for the mountain gorilla, for people who one day will get to go back once things open up into the region. So it is certainly a very sad state of affairs, Anne-Marie.
Yeah, it sounds heartbreaking, but I'm glad that we are at least shining a light on it. And I encourage other people to go out and read, get more information, and see if there are ways that perhaps you can help. Debora, thank you so much.